Welcome to the Dale Lolley Show here on the Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I am your host, Dale Lolley. The Steelers back at practice on Monday. They threw a little change up at everybody. And instead of holding their practice at St. Vincent College, decided to go over to Latrobe Memorial High School Stadium, or Latrobe Memorial Stadium, I should say. Sometimes they play some high school games over there, but the high school also has its own football field. But the grass surface over there was in good shape, and so they decided to go over there. And they also did that as an opportunity for fans to come over into that facility and help raise a little bit of money for the Latrobe High School Athletic Fund and other things there. So Steelers went ahead and did that, and a bunch of guys back in the lineup today for the Steelers. I thought that would be the case as we saw Micah Fitzpatrick back in pads. We saw Larry Ogunjobi in pads for the first time. He's into things. He jumped right back in. Chase Claypool was out there running some stuff. Micah Fitzpatrick was there. Who else? There was just a bunch of guys who had been sitting out over the last few weeks. They're starting to ramp things up again here as we get into preseason week number one. The Steelers, of course, host their first preseason game on Saturday at Acrisure Stadium. And I thought this was going to kind of be the case how Mike Tomlin would handle things, in that I don't expect a lot of those guys to play on Saturday. Mike Tomlin will let us know about that later in the week. But I did expect them to at least start to get acclimated or reacclimated to things starting this week, to ramp them up to play in next week's preseason game in Jacksonville. That will be the big one, I would think. It kind of gives you a little clue on how Tomlin is leaning in terms of what he plans to do in this preseason. Remember, the Steelers last year had 4 preseason games because they played in the Hall of Fame game. This year, like everybody else last year, they only have 3. So we don't know how Mike Tomlin is going to handle only 3 preseason games. My feeling is, maybe he has a few more offensive starters play this week when the Steelers are at home. But you're not going to see Cam Hayward or TJ Watt or guys like that, or any of these guys who are coming back off of injuries. Tyson Alualu also activated from the PUP list on Monday, so kind of follows through with that. So they're getting a little bit more healthy in that respect, but they did get a little more banged up in this practice because it was a physical practice. The Steelers really getting after it in this one. And so you saw some guys leaving this practice early. You saw Kevin Dotson leave with a little bit of an ankle. He was in and out of the lineup, but he was already playing behind Kendrick Green with the 2s in this practice. They weren't really rotating all that much, at least unless Kevin Dotson injured that ankle earlier than I thought. It was pretty much Kendrick Green in there with the starters. So that's kind of been what I've been reporting all along here, that the expectation is that Green will win that job, and it's sure starting to look that way. But Alex Highsmith went out with some ribs. He had a rib injury. Deontay Johnson's got a bit of a hip flexor. That's nothing major there. He looked good today. Jannard Avery's dealing with a groin. Kevin Dotson the ankle. And from Saturday's practice, saw Derek Watt dealing with a shoulder injury as well. So they've had some physical practices here the last couple of days when they have practiced. None more physical than the one that they had on Monday. Had a goal line drill that was very hotly contested. The team run drill was very physical as well. And Ogunjobi made a couple of plays there right away that really showed what he can be, perhaps, with this team. He's going to be a handful for teams as well. So the defensive line is going to look really good. Watched a lot of the one-on-one offensive line, defensive line drills today, and that defensive front. I don't know if there's anybody who is going to be more happy when training camp is over in the entire NFL than Chuks Okorafor, because Chuks Okorafor every day in one-on-one blocking drills has to go against TJ Watt. That's a no-win situation, because even, Okorafor, wins his share of those things. But there's a reason why TJ Watt gets double and triple teamed so much. That's a handful of a player for anybody one-on-one in one-on-one situations like that. So Cora for after on his he had won one, lost one, or lost two, and then or I'm sorry, he lost 1, 2, and lost one in his first couple of reps against T.J. Watt, and then Watt, who had tried to spin move on him, tried to go inside before that, and did some T.J. Watt like things with his hand placement. He's just so quick with the hands. On the third one, Okorafor is kind of setting up, waiting for that spin move or finesse move, something, whatever it is, and watches goes with a straight bull rush, and bull rushed him back into the pocket, and you just saw Okorafor kind of looked over at his teammates when he got done. Is like kind of shrugged his shoulders, like, "What am I supposed to do here?" I mean, this guy's unblockable in a one-on-one situation like that. So, kind of felt for Chuks Okorafor in that situation. Like I said, I guarantee when this is all over and done with, he will be a very happy man. But it's making him better. I guarantee you that, because he's not going to, when he gets into games, it's not going to be any harder than what he's just faced this entire training camp. Same thing for Green, as a matter of fact. He's lining up against Cam Hayward over there in that left guard spot. And, you know, hey, Cam Hayward's going to bull rush anybody. He got him one time, but Green didn't know, he held his own over there. I saw the same thing when I watched those two on Saturday. Green is game to the task for sure. And, that's been a good battle as well. So Mike Tomlin likes to always say iron sharpens iron in that kind of situation. That's exactly what happened. But Steelers getting much more healthy, and that's not a bad thing at this time of year. As long as they continue to avoid all the typical bumps and bruises that aren't too bad, and avoid the major injuries. And they did that. If you remember, Cam Sutton left practice last week with a knee injury. He was back out there today with nothing on the knee, no brace, nothing. He wasn't favoring it at all. In fact, he was out there taking snaps with the first team defense. So, it's not. We're heading into week 3 of this training camp 2022, and thus far, the Steelers coming through this relatively unscathed. We'll see if that continues. But I'm going to take a break. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to the Dale Lolley Show here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back. I am the Dale Lolley. This is the Dale Lolley Show here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. And we're starting to get into the kind of I don't want to call it the dog days of training camp, because it's not been hot out here, all that hot anyways. The Steelers have dealt with a lot of rain that has forced them to move some things around. But we are getting into that period where you do want to see some guys. If they showed up early in training camp, can they continue to do so? We're starting to see more guys, in pads working against each other. And so you start to come to some realizations about things, start to come to some up with some ideas on deeper dives into things. And it became obvious to me that the Steelers are they're really trying to build that line of scrimmage and on both sides of the ball. And so you see that competition on a daily basis. As I mentioned, they do team run every day. That is a live period. At Monday's practice, they closed out with a goal line drill that was physical. At one point, Ryan Clark, who was here with some of the other guys from his podcast, and the offense threw a couple times in short yardage situations, which you are allowed to do in the NFL. Steelers trying to score from 2 in that situation. So it was almost like a repeat of 7 shots. But in 7 shots, they typically throw the football. They have tried some runs in some of these situations. they were set up for power in these situations, and yet they were still throwing the ball at times out of some of those power formations. And Clark came across yelling about, um, "You need to run the ball. You need to run the ball. You need to run the ball in this situation," trying to help the defense out a little bit. And so the Steelers did run the ball with that next play, but it was an end around by Steven Sims, and he went into the end zone untouched. The offense has started to look a little bit better. As I mentioned, starting last Wednesday, I thought Mitch Trubisky looked sharp again today. He threw touchdowns on his first 2 passes and 7 shots. Then they had a drop. There was some stuff going on there, but I thought he's looked good over the last few days here of practice, as has Kenny Pickett. Mason Rudolph has looked exactly the way he has the entire time. He's been kind of the one constant there for the Steelers at the quarterback position. But the offense is starting to catch up to the defense a little bit, and that should make some Steeler fans happy. I know everybody wants defense, 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 but you need that offense to hold up its end of the bargain as well. And so, at one point in this practice, Benny Snell, who was subbing for Najee Harris, who's one of those guys who's still not back, although he was in shoulder pads on Monday. Benny Snell broke off a run up the middle. It was a nice seam there created by center Mason Cole and left guard Kendrick Green, and he snuck in through that hole between those two guys and ripped off about a 12-yard run. And the offensive guys were really excited about that. In fact, you saw Mitch Trubisky run down and was kind of slapping. He was the first guy there to help Benny Snell up after that run. So starting to see some signs of things like that. We're starting to see more holes there. Now, at the same time, when you see a hole like that created or something like that happen, well, conversely, the defense didn't do something right, but the defense won its share of these battles as well. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in that first preseason game. Does the offense look like it has here over the last few days? Does the defense look suffocating as it has throughout much of this camp? That's why we play these games. Can't wait to see that first preseason game. That'll come later this week. But as I said, I don't expect to see a lot of the frontline defensive players in there. Offensively, I do expect to see some of those guys play in that first preseason game. That's going to do it for today's Dale Lolley Show. We'll be back again tomorrow to recap some things that happened in practice, some thoughts on things that I've seen or heard out here over the course of this whole thing. But you can also listen to our other shows here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Got all your team coverage here: Pirates, Penguins, of course, the Steelers, Pitt and Penn State as well. Give us a like. Let people know that the shows are out there. We appreciate that. But I'll be back to talk to you again tomorrow. We'll talk to you then.